Fat Beans Roasting Lab. Um, I'll repeat this a couple of times, but we're going to actually try to do our first of the brewing series as well. So after we get done roasting our batch, we're going to kind of switch the camera arrays up a little bit and actually try to demonstrate some different brewing methods, which will be kind of fun because I've gotten the kitchen built up enough. I think it will at least look presentable. So I think we'll have some fun with that. I'm no, just like I'm no roasting master, no brewing master either, but I have a couple of things I like to do. I think we can have some fun with it today. If you are tuning in or re-watching the videos, if you could go ahead and follow, that way you get updates anytime I go live. And you can also check Fat Beans Coffee Labs out on Instagram at Fat Beans Coffee Lab. So we're gonna get started here. We'll get the roast started relatively quickly because we will be moving to the brewing side after we get the roasting done. So let's preheat our machine. And then once I get the machine preheated, I'll kind of give you a rundown of what the plan is today. So today we're doing the second pound of the Nicaraguan roast. And we are going to try to take it just a skosh darker. Now, I haven't even gotten a chance to taste it yet. However, I want to try to see a little darker just so I can get something to play off of. I think the roast that we did last time looks pretty good, and based off the smell I'm already getting from it, I'm excited to try it tomorrow. But I'm going to take this just a little darker just to try that out. So what we're going to do is we're going to preheat the machine. Last time we preheated it to about 230 degrees. I think we're going to stick with that preheat because we are trying to take this a little bit darker. So I'd like to get to that first crack a little bit sooner than I normally do. So we are going to just bring the machine up, and it's been, full disclosure, it's been a pretty cold day today. So the machine might be a little bit more sluggish just because the outside or the exterior air of the machine is quite a bit colder than it normally is. It was a cold day here in Kansas, so we might have a little bit longer roast, so I'll try to make some preparation for that as well. Some things we will try to do to make the roast go a little bit darker. I am going to try to get a pretty rolling crack before I cut the heat, just to make sure that the beans have as much heat as possible. And then as soon as I hear the last faint crack, I'm going to try, and I say try because I have a kind of a quick trigger once I stop hearing cracks, just because I've done 68 of the 70 roasts we've done now. I've done relatively light. I want to pull it, so I'm going to set a timer and really try to hold myself to allowing it to go about a minute after the cracks stop. So if you're in the chat and you see me getting a little trigger fingered, just go ahead and throw a type in there and say, don't do it. Because I do want to see if I can take this a little bit darker to see what kind of flavors I can still develop when it goes darker. All right, so we got someone in the chat already. Hi. So if you're new, we are going to be roasting a half pound of Nicaraguan. We did the first pound last time, so we're just trying to compare it. I took it about medium darkness last time. This time we are going to try to take it to medium, start moving a little bit close to second crack, but cutting it before then. Also, a little bit later, after we get done roasting, we're going to switch over to our kitchen, and we're going to brew up some of the beans that we've done in previous episodes. We're going to be doing a pour over Chemex method, kind of a demonstration of that. So if you are new, welcome to the experience, and if you have any questions or comments or even some suggestions for me, please throw those in the chat. So we are preheating the machine. This little B-more, this is a kind of the home roasting champ. It can make some really, really good coffee. It is limited for the features it is because it is a small model meant for home roasting. It doesn't have a lot of the data that can be produced by, say, a commercial machine or even some of the higher end home roasting machines. But if you kind of play around with it and you experiment like we do quite a bit on it, you can get some really, really tasty coffee out of it. One thing we're doing is preheating it. I have found by preheating this machine, I can get to first crack a lot faster. That is one of the downfalls of this is people I've talked to, forums I've looked at, says that anything later than about 9 minutes into first crack is it's too much. It's taking too long to heat the beans up. So in order to be able to get to that first crack on this, a good preheat is required. Okay, so right now we're at about 230 degrees, which is what I wanted to be at in my preheat. So I'm going to cut the power and I'm going to add the beans now. So this is a little thermal glove. It's a barbecuing glove. It works pretty well because this basket is very hot. It's pretty well. And we're going to throw our green beans. Now, if you've never seen green beans before, they are just that. They are green. They're quite a bit smaller, yet they're a lot denser than roasted beans. So if you've seen roasted whole beans, these weigh quite a bit more. And in fact, we're going to lose about 15 to 20% of our overall heat when we fully roast these. The beans will gain size, but they're going to lose weight. All right, so we're going to throw our machine in, and we're going to set some parameters. When I'm roasting on this machine, I like to set the drum speed very fast when I'm drying the beans out, just so that all the bean surface can be exposed to the heat. I also like to set it to full power. There are what roasters call roasting profiles, and all roasting profiles means is an adjustment of heat. When you're giving it max heat, half heat, depending on what bean you are roasting, there are different roasting profiles that you can put towards the bean. But for me, I've found on the early stages, I tend to like to just give it full power and let it dry out as quickly as possible. We're also going to set up the bean cam here so you can watch right along with us as we roast. So hopefully you'll be able to see the beans kind of go through all of their different phases. So they're sorry, looks like the bean cam is and if you can see the person kind of peeking in and out in the background there, that's my trusty assistant, Julie. She will be kind of helping me out with the cameras, and she's also going to be joining us for the second half when we go into the kitchen to do the brewing. She is actually going to be primarily doing the brewing. So I will be kind of trying to walk her through some of the steps of doing a Chemex brew. So that can be kind of fun, and we'll be able to interact with her and ask her some of her questions about coffee as well. So we're getting some happy birthday, Julie's. Yes, Julie's birthday was yesterday, so feel free to wish her happy birthday in the chat. And we got some great angles, so I'm glad that the bean camera is set up good. And I'll try to walk you through what I am noticing some difference in scents to see if you can see the beans, if they're changing any sorts of colors. So right now, we are just drying the beans out and taking notes to make sure that the temperature is climbing at a fast enough pace to get us to that first crack within that 8 to 9 minutes that we're looking for. So as I mentioned a little earlier, it's quite a bit colder than it has been. Our basement is really cold. I took the external temperature of this room was only about 62 degrees. So it might slow the roast down a little bit. I am kind of nervous. I hope it doesn't stretch my roast out too long, but we'll just have to wait and see. All right, and looks like we're on Instagram Live too. So we brought our Instagram Live in. So hello to everyone on Instagram Live. What we're doing is we're roasting some coffee beans for Fat Beans Roasting Laboratory. We do it almost every night on Twitch. We use Twitch as a platform. It's a really good place where you can interact. You can type in the chat. We have several cams going here. So we have a face cam, a lot like the view that you're seeing now. We also have a bean cam, which is focused on the beans. Tonight we're also doing something special on Twitch that we're going to try to start doing more often, and we're going to do a kitchen show or a brewing laboratory where we do different types of brewing methods. So tonight we're going to be going through how we like to roast on a Chemex Brewer using some of the beans that we've roasted specifically to be used in a Chemex. I'm going to go ahead and answer some questions on Twitch here. Love the bean cam. So the bean cam is a big hit. So if you are on Instagram Live and you want to check it out more, please jump over to Twitch and get in on some of the conversations that we're having. Also, if you are on Twitch and you have not followed us yet, please do. It gives you an opportunity to get alerts when we are roasting, and it also helps kind of build my overall profile as well. So is that right now we are really struggling as far as getting our temperatures up, which is kind of concerning. I'm trying to analyze what's going on. That's not normal, so that is why I'm constantly checking the temperatures. Not that I get a lot of data about the beans themselves, but it does tell me about the machine. Um, because this is a live show and you've got to make sure you're always checking your numbers. Luckily, I was able to catch the fact that I forgot to set it at full power. I was on a different roasting profile and was not on full power, so we got it on full power. So hopefully this doesn't affect the roast too much. I don't think it will, but luckily we were checking and taking notes, and when things weren't lining up, I was able to quickly make an adjustment to that. All right, what temp are you trying to get to? So the bean temperature, we're actually trying to get the beans where their temperature is right around 400 degrees. We have no way of knowing what the beans are because there is no thermostat in the bean basket. The way that this machine is set up, it doesn't have infrared temperatures. Some of the upper end models actually have infrareds shooting at the beans, which give them a really good readout. We are trying to get the internal temperature to 200, 320 degrees and let the beans, when they reach their final development time, that the machine itself is at 320 degrees. So we are trying to speed up the roast by getting the machine as hot as possible. So right now we're at about 270 degrees, so we are making up quite a bit. Why are there different power levels? Do some beans roast better at lower temperatures? Yes. Um, some beans, if they are grown in much more hospitable climates. So think about Hawaii. Hawaii doesn't have a big temperature swing. It's an island and it's about 70 degrees all year round. It's very mild. What this means is uh, those beans are very soft. You do not want to have high heats really fast on a soft bean. You'll scorch them. However, beans that are grown, like say in Panama, that gets a lot of varying weather and a ton of humidity, those beans are a lot more, I don't want to say hardy, but they are a little bit more weather worn. They will take temperature a lot, they can take a lot more temperature adjustments, especially on the high heat, they won't burn. So the temperature adjustment is just to keep them from burning. This little machine is not going to burn machines, but if you get to a gas powered where you can just throw a lot of flame on it, roasters do start to do gentler profiles for softer beans. Interesting. I know, right? All right, so we are phasing pretty well, and the smell just changed. If you're looking at the bean cam, you can notice that they've lightened up quite a bit. The beans have moved from green to yellow. Julie, what are some of the Instagram? Is there anything in the chat there that we can address?
Uh, no, Brittany is joining us, and
Okay.
Brittany is someone that possibly is going to purchase some of our
All right.
coffee.
These won't be yours, but yours will be roasted in a little bit different setting, but very similar. I will be sure to let you know when we do yours so you can watch right along with us. what's the ideal country? Which climate is the very best? Now, there's a lot of people. That's a good question that just came in through Twitch. What is the ideal climate? Well, the equator. So most coffee producing countries are found on or near the equator. You have to be between 60 degrees and 80 degrees. Anything below 60 or 80, they won't produce fruit, or they'll produce too tough a fruit, or it won't flower. It's a very, very, very low hardy plant. Now, from there, elevation is really important, and and also it does really good in volcanic soil. So when you look around the regions where coffee is grown, it usually is grown with places that have high elevation, volcanic soil, 70 degrees on average temperature, um, and also, you know, year long, and not a ton of changing humidity. You don't want high humidity in the day, low humidity at night, changing very rapidly. You can have high humidity, like say in Brazil, but it needs to be relatively steady.
Right, we have a question coming in.
Okay.
What is the sweetest flavored beans?
So the sweetest.
Where would you get them?
So the sweetest flavored beans. There's a lot that goes into the sweetness. Now there is sugar inside of the beans. That can be a part of the processing. However, if you were looking for like fruity flavors and fruit flavored beans, generally Ethiopians are very sweet. Kenyans are known for being very sweet. And there are certain types, specifically geisha beans in Central America, that are more sweet. Anything else you start moving into the bittersweet or the chocolatey flavors, that is on the other end of the flavor palette, and you can get some bittersweet can produce a little bit of sweetness, but generally lighter roasts and the fruitier flavor notes, typically from your Ethiopians. There's also some Southeast Asians that produce some really sweet flavors.
Should she stick with a light or a dark roast?
A light roast. If you're chasing like fruity flavors, you should stick with the light roast. When you start moving into a darker roast, you're going after the chocolate, the vanilla, the more balanced and more bitter side of the flavor. So if you like your fruity coffees, stick with the light roast. That's where you're gonna get the most fruit notes. All right. Could you grow coffee beans in a temperature-controlled area? You stumped me there. I would say no, but I mean, I guess you could. I mean, they're growing things places all the time. I'm not a botanist. Generally, you're going to miss out on some of the terroir, which means the complex of the soil, and there's a lot of the micronutrients that are in soil that would be hard to reproduce. But I'm sure in some lab somewhere they're trying to produce coffee in laboratory setting, because then you could open it up to being able to grow coffee here in the northern hemisphere, which would be a big improvement, in my opinion. BK3. If you could teach celebrities how to roast, who would it be and why? Now, that's a question I like. Christopher Walken, I think that would be the guy who would, really appreciate roasting coffee and would be, I think, the absolute best student you could possibly have. So, Christopher Walken would answer that question. All right, so you can tell by the bean cam, we've darkened quite a bit. We are moving in. I'm starting to hear some early pops. I will quiet down so that you guys can take in the first crack and just try to be quiet for a little bit. That's tough for me to do. Okay, so there's the first crack. I'm going to lower the temperature. I'm going to slow down the drum speed. And I'm just going to let the first crack take place. Okay, that's the last crack. Now I'm going to try to wait 45 seconds to a minute. So keep me honest in the chat, because I am notorious for just wanting to get the beans out as soon as they're done with that first crack. All right, and if you are joining us on Twitch and you've not given us a follow yet, please do so. We roast probably 3 to 4 times a week. And tonight we are going to actually be brewing some coffee as well. We're going to start doing that quite a bit more from time to time where we roast and brew.
So, Brian, we're getting to ask about what kind of coffee pot do you use?
I'll answer that in 1 second. I'm going to actually take the beans out now. So what kind of coffee pot? I use a whole variety, and that's what the kitchen show on Twitch and sometimes on Instagram Live is going to be devoted to, showing you all the different methods that I use and when I'm roasting the coffee, what I'm trying to get it for that particular method. On every given day, I always use an AeroPress at work every day. I also use a Hario V60 at work almost every day. At home, I'll use just a Cuisinart drip coffee maker. I mean, I'm an American. I love drip coffee, and we use Chemex. I'm also been experimenting with a mocha pot from time to time.
And the Chemex is what we're going to show here in a little bit.
So we're going to actually pull the beans out, and we were able to achieve quite a bit darker. I'll show you that here in a second. I am taking the beans out and going to cool them externally. And I will be doing that off-site tonight.
Hi, Britt. This is for you. So the Chemex is what we're going to use here in just a few minutes to show you how to brew with that. But typically, like at home, when it's on the weekend, we use the Cuisinart drip. That's probably my favorite. And then the AeroPress, there's a picture of it. There's a picture of the AeroPress in our Instagram posts. You can see what that is if you've never heard of it. It's what Brian takes to work with him.
Okay.
I've never done this before, by the way.
So I'm cooling the beans outside of the machine. I'm doing that because I found in this machine it takes 13 minutes. That will ruin a lot of the fruity flavors that I like to keep within my beans. It is not ideal, but because this is a very low, kind of home roaster, they're trying to do the all-in-one kind of thing. They do have some cooling. I have found that you get a lot better flavored coffee when you cool it externally. I'm just using a shop vac to pull air across the beans. The shop vac's not in contact with the beans. All it's doing is sucking cool air down over the beans, and it cools the beans in about 4 minutes. So I got not Tom Hanks. Well, I would love to have Tom Hanks here, but I mean, I don't know. I don't think he would be like the guy I'd want to roast coffee with. When I'm down here, I still think Walken is the guy you roast coffee with. Now, Tom Hanks, every other situation, but I'm sticking with my choice, even though, like, like, you had the opportunity to even meet Tom Hanks, and he's like, hey, Brian, I want you to teach me how to make coffee. And it'd be tough to say no, but it's all Walken, man. All right, so the beans have been cooling for about 4 minutes. I'm going to pull them over here and give you guys a look. Shake them down, and then we're going to switch over to the kitchen, and I'm going to show you how we like to roast, brew some of our roasted beans. All right, so you see we've adjust our bean cam here. So we were able to go a little bit darker this time. They look even. They look really good. So we'll have to make some notes to see if the longer development time changed any of the flavors and brought out some of those more medium roast flavors that we were looking for.
Pretty good.
Do you time how long you cool the beans? 4 minutes is ideal. What I found is that anywhere between 3 and 4 minutes will just cool it to about room temperature. That's what I'm looking to do. I call it room temperature because it's called cool to touch, but since we are starting to share these, I'm not touching them. In fact, when I do the roast that I share them with, usually you'll see me wearing gloves or a mask. So if I ever record one of those, I do try to keep it as sanitary on that sense as possible. But 4 minutes will bring it down to about room temperature. Um, I don't time it, say like to the second. It just I try to get 4 minutes be the cutoff time to shut the vacuum off because it's really annoying. Okay, so that's the beans. I think we did a good roast, and I'm excited to get the taste of that. So that was the Nicaraguan. The Nicaraguan, it does have some chocolatey and vanilla flavors that usually are better brought out in a more balanced cup, meaning we kind of burn off some of the acidity and we start moving a little bit more towards the bitter. So I'll be giving a full rundown of that on my Instagram in the next probably about 3 to 4 days once these have had some time to degas. That just means the CO2 coming off the beans, and then we will give a full report. So be looking for that on Instagram at Fat Beans Coffee Lab. So the smell is phenomenal. Um, it is a very rich smell. I've noticed with the darker roasts, the smell coming out of the machine is much more prevalent than the light roast. The light roasts tend to get their smells a couple of days of their development. These darker roasts are putting off a lot more of that traditional roasted coffee smell when they're first coming out of the machine. That's good for me, but when I think about that in my head, if it's already coming off the beans, that tells me that the beans are starting to oxidize and starting to kind of lose some of their flavors. So when you do buy a medium roast or a darker roast, remember you have less shelf time. A light roast gives you about 2 to 2.5 weeks after you roast it. Now, roasters do try to use vacuum sealed bags and different things to give you more freshness longer. But after 2 weeks after you have it, that's about as far as you want to take a light roast before some really negative flavors start to come in. Medium roast, cut that down to about 9 days. Dark roast, about 6 days. Dark roast is really, really hard to get at the grocery store. You can go to the grocery store and just look how many dark roasts are on the shelf, but if you really want to experience what a dark roast is supposed to taste like, and I really recommend you find a local roaster who does dark roast and try to get it within the first 6 days. That is, if you're a dark roast person, you're going to have to work a little bit harder. If you're a light roast person, like the fruity, you get about 2 3 weeks. So remember that when you're buying the amount, what date you're buying it, and from who that you're buying it from. All right, so we're gonna try this, and bear with me. If this thing goes all belly up on Twitch, I will just recast it. But I'm going to throw the be right back screen. I'm going to take my computer just right around the hall here. I'm going to set the cameras up, and we are going to do the first ever kitchen show. So this is it. It could be awesome, and it could be a disaster. Who knows? We're about to find out. If you're still on Instagram, nope. We're just getting Brittany.
No, I had like
stop myself. Okay, so welcome back, and we will try to set it up as best that we can. I think I'm going to have Julie work on this, and I'm going to work on the camera here. So please be active in the chat as far as what you're seeing or any sort of ideas. Clearly the lights aren't perfect down here yet. I want to add a bunch of features, but I wanted to show you guys because I've been teasing this so much over the last couple of streams. I wanted to give you guys a chance to check it out. So
where are you standing?
I will probably stand right here.
Okay.
All right. So please give us any sort of feedback on what you're seeing. And we will get this set up and going in a couple of minutes. I mean, a couple of seconds here.
This needs to go over there.
So,
say hold on a second.
Hold on just a second. We're going to... Much better. So, if you notice the tiling here, that's new. Thank you to Ricardo Belvedere. He gave us these tiles for free. So I was able to practice my tiling skill and make this kitchen look a little bit nicer. We'll be adding some things to this kitchen over the next couple of weeks when I have some free time. So shelves and decor and coffee cups and all that stuff. But for now, I just wanted to bring it in here because I think it would be kind of cool to demonstrate some of the methods that we use. No, I don't too much light. So. Okay, so does this look good for everyone?
Good.
That looks great. All right, thank you. Thanks, Jill. Okay, so it looks like we lost bean cam, so let me see if I can't go and... Okay. Like I said, bear with us. This is the first time we've done the kitchen portion of the roasting. And Julie, I think I'm getting lost in this. Bring it this way. Okay. So, welcome back. What we're going to be doing is we are going to be brewing with a Chemex Brewer. My assistant and wife Julie will be here too, kind of going through the roasting method with us, and then we'll be drinking it. So if you're following along and you want to make all right, and you want to brew along with us, feel free. Like I said, we'll be using a Chemex, and we'll be using the pour over method for it. I'm going to let Julie just introduce herself to you here on the camera for a minute because I've got to run and get the Chemex. I'll be right back.
Hi. I probably know everyone that's on. So thanks for joining and thanks for being patient while we get set up over here. I'm also watching the baby monitor to make sure no one wakes up. Is this angle okay?
All right. You're upstairs and you are. Grab the filter. All right, so this is the Chemex Brewer. This is the Chemex Brewer. Credit my brother. He gave this to me for Christmas about 3 years ago. I had never done this, and in fact, my only experience with a Chemex Brewer like this was from seeing it on Friends in the background. So that was my. I never experienced. I never really done pour over coffee up to that point. I was really only doing the AeroPress and drip coffee. And then my brother, he had been experimenting with this and said that he really, really enjoyed it. So I started using it, and it does make a really good cup of coffee. The coffee that you get from a Chemex is very light. It's very, very delicate. It tends to be pulled a little bit more. You get more of the acid. But if you are into drinking fruity and light flavors and looking to get a lot more intense flavors from the beans, or really tasting what the beans are supposed to taste like, as as they were intended at the farm, a Chemex does a really good job with that. It also makes about 6 cups of coffee, which is good for sharing. And why we're doing this one first, there are what I would consider to be a couple better brewing methods for light roasting. A couple that I mentioned were the AeroPress and the V60. But this is, like I said, it's good for sharing, and it is if you're just trying to get away from drip coffee and you want to do something special on the weekends, or if you just want to have something and drink a whole one of these carafes, which I'm guilty of all the time, it makes some really, really decent coffee. Um, what's a Chemex? So hopefully that answered the question of a Chemex. All a Chemex is an hourglass shaped glass bottle that you put a filter in. You just put a paper filter that looks like this. You put the coffee in the filter, and then the water drips down into the Chemex and fills up the reservoir. So I'm just going to walk you guys through my Chemex brewing method. As if you have any questions while we're going through it, please throw those in, and I will try to answer them. But I'm just going to try to start to finish show you how I brew a Chemex. Now, I know for a fact that there are some, avid coffee drinkers out here. So if you see me making like an unforgivable sin, call me out on it, because I'm not saying that I'm a master brewer by any means. I am self-taught. I brew simply by trial and error. So if you see me doing something and you say, hey, I like to do it this way, or you should try this method, please fill me in on those, and I will make adjustments in my handy notes that I constantly take anytime I'm doing something new. If you haven't noticed by now, um, I take a ton of notes, and I think if you're not taking notes on this, you really should, because someday I'm going to get to that perfect cup, and I'm going to know how to get it. Not there yet. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set the filter, and this is the first step that some people skip, and I recommend not skipping it at all. When you put the filter, this filter I have is made of paper. There's a wide variety of filters. You can use metal filters, cloth filters, or paper filters. I tend to just use paper filters. They tend to soak up some of the badder tasting oils. They also are disposable, so when you're done, you throw them up. Also, I just poured some water in there without coffee. I'm trying to wash the paper taste down into the reservoir and also heat the reservoir up a little bit so that my hot coffee isn't hitting a cold reservoir. So the first thing I do is I just saturate the Chemex and filter with water, and I'm just going to discard of this water.
And that was warm water, correct?
That was, yes. The next thing I am using, I'm going to be using hot water. This water I've heated up to 205 degrees. This little kettle that I bought, it actually has presets on it, so you can pick the temperature and it will hold it at that temperature. You don't need anything more than boiling water. Um, with a good pour over, you don't want pure boiling water being poured onto it. You're fall into the realm of maybe over extracting or getting some of those bad tastes from coffee. 205, 204. A lot of people agree that that's a really good temperature for a pour over coffee. And in fact, this tea kettle has a setting that says 205 pour over coffee. So we're at 205, but you don't need to have you don't need to go out and buy a tea kettle with a setting. Really, if you're just have boiling water, boil the water. And a good rule is wait 1 minute and take it off the heat and wait 1 minute. After about a minute, it has cooled down to around about 205 degrees. Now, it's not, exact, but if you have nothing else, don't think that you can't make a good cup of coffee or you can't start tweaking or making changes just because you don't have that device. Okay, so that our water is heated up. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to add our coffee. So this is the Ethiopian that I roasted a couple of days ago. It has a good fruity flavor. It has some good acid flavors. It has some good rich floral notes. All will be kind of really brought out by the Chemex. So Ethiopians are really good for both Chemex and for pour overs. It also makes a pretty good cup of drip. So we're going to measure out a certain amount. Now we're trying to make about 6 cups, well, 6 small cups of coffee in the Chemex. And I've already gone through and decided that I'm going to use 35 grams of coffee and 830 grams of water. So I don't have a calculator in front of me, but it's well within the 15 grams of water to 1 gram of coffee range. So I'm going to weigh out 35 grams on my kitchen scale here. And I'm going to drop it into my grinder. This grinder is, it's a really good home grinder. If you are wanting to step your coffee game up, I would recommend grinding your own coffee. So taking your water temperature down to about 200, 205 degrees and starting to grind your own coffee. Pour over is not as fickle as, say, espresso, where you'll have people that are really into the espresso community that will say, even a couple of seconds will start to oxidize. But once you grind the beans, you expose all the oils and a bunch more surface area to oxygen. And oxygen creates a lot of negative flavors in coffee over a long period of time. By grinding it and then moving it and starting to roast it, you allow yourself to kind of avoid a lot of those negative flavors that can happen if you are, say, grinding it at the grocery store or buying it pre-ground. This is a conical grinder. This is the reason I have a conical grinder is because I'm brewing a lot of different methods. This lets me do really coarse grind. This lets me do semi-fine grind. But you don't need a machine like this to grind your own coffee. A flat blade grinder or a cheap $12 coffee grinder from the store will give you a consistent, well, not consistent, but good enough grind up beans for a pour over coffee maker. Even if you have like a magic bullet, something you got for Christmas 6, 7, 8 years ago when those were all the rage, even that will give you a good enough grind for this. So don't be afraid don't think that I don't have a grinder, I can't do this. This was about a $150 grinder. I know that seems like a lot for a grinder, but I mean, when you start getting into, say, espresso, the grinders start costing more than the machines do. To get there's some really cool grinding technology that gives them a really consistent, really variable form of grind that not even this $160 machine. But I implore you that just start grinding your own coffee. You don't need to have the nicest things possible to get a really good cup of coffee. Now, if you start playing the game of, wanting to get great coffee, there are a ton of options. Just give me the. Okay, so I had this set to coarse grind. Coarse grind, and I'll show you it, but think of it like kosher salt. Okay, so you'll look at the grinds here. It's about kosher salt. If you're wondering, if you can roll it in your fingers and it comes off, it doesn't hang around and it feels kind of gritty, that's a coarse grind, and it's probably a coarse enough grind for this. Most of the time, you want a pretty coarse grind for a pour over. You don't want the water hanging around too long and oversaturating the beans. The grind size will determine how fast the coffee is able to brew. Finer grind would be like your espresso. Your pour overs tend to be a much coarser grind, with this pour over probably being towards the coarsest. So I'm going to pour it into my hopper here and just level it out. From here, I'm going to move it back to the scale because, like I said before, I'm going to try to put 830 grams of water over this coffee. So I want to be measuring it while I go. I have a timer here. It's very important that for the early stages of this, you have some sort of timer. Some scales have timers built right in, but if you are getting into making your own coffee and you want to start playing around with the flavors, being able to get the right times is going to help you create the best cup of coffee. Now, again, like all things, you don't need to be doing this. I just got into the habit of doing it. I wanted to show you it. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to pour the hot water over top of the grounds, and I'm going to pour 100 grams. I'm going to let those 100 grams just sit on the coffee, and this is called letting it bloom. We're trying to get the coffee beans to open up and start taking water before I just start pouring over. If we don't let it bloom, we're going to get a lot of weak coffee in there to start. It's not going to taste very good. So switch sides here and start just by putting 100 grams. Now that was a little fast. Never done this with a camera person standing over top of me, but I'm just going to set this timer for 30 seconds. Overall, this brewing method should take you anywhere between 3.5 and 4 minutes total. If you're not talking to a camera and answering questions, this entire method shouldn't take you more than about 6 minutes altogether. All right, so we've bloomed up, and now we're going to start, and we're just going to start pouring 100 more over, and just keep, 100 stop, 100 stop, 100 stop, in a circular counterclockwise motion until we get to our 830. So enjoy the process. Julie, explain some of the scents that you're smelling now that we've started brewing. Julie?
First thing, it's kind of citrusy. It's just starting, the more he pours, the more it's starting to get very aromatic in here. And you can see the steam coming off, so it's nice and hot. I don't know if you can see down here how much is coming out of it from brewing.
Also, I'm just trying to keep a steady, consistent saturation on the grounds and just get a steady flow of water going through it. When I'm on my own, I will play around a lot. I'll try to, make it a lot more steady. I'll mess around with how fast I go, how slow I go. All right, sorry about that. Looks like we lost everyone. So this is again our main show in the kitchen. We're just really working out the bugs here. I'm about 2.5 minutes into the roast, and I've just about got all of my water into the hopper. So we're at 830, and now we're just going to let it fill into the carafe here. Um, Anything past about 4 minutes, you already know that you have too fine of a grind. You want it to be constantly passing over and have a pretty steady stream. We are doing a pretty good job of, I think we're going to end up right around between 3.5 minutes and 4 minutes on the finish here. And again, let us know if there's any more, if you notice any more technical difficulties as we are just trying to uh, work out our system here in this new area. Also, if you are new to the Twitch channel, please give us a follow. Also, you can check us out, some of our pictures and some of our more of our journaling of coffee at Fat Beans Coffee Lab on Instagram as well. So our 8:30 is in, and now we're just letting it come in. At 4 minutes on my timer, I'm going to just pull whatever water hasn't come in yet and call that the brew. Anything that goes beyond 4 minutes, I don't really want because it's going to start bringing in the longer that you expose coffee to water, the more negative flavors that are in the beans start getting pulled down with them. And that is right about 4 minutes. So I'm going to take our filter over and just discard the filter, the coffee, and any water that's left. And this will be our roast. Oh, excuse me, our brew. All right, so there it is. Now, honestly, that wasn't the smoothest, so it usually goes a lot smoother, a lot quicker. But like I said, this was the first time we had ever done with all the production, all the cameras, so it was a little bit rocky. But still, just by the smell, the look, I think it's going to make a pretty solid cup of pretty solid cup. So. So there it is, Nicaraguan. Cheers. Now,
very smooth. For people that don't typically like coffee black, I think this would be a really easy thing to ease into, and a way to try out just a plain black coffee.
So it looks like we got the mic back. So hopefully you can hear us now. What we were just describing was that this pour over method has really allowed a lot of the fruit flavors to come out, a lot of the floral notes to enter the nose, yet it's very tea-like. It doesn't have a lot of the bitter taste that coffee normally does. That has been pushed way to the side. It's a very, very tea-like taste. That is notorious with the Chemex. It generally is a very delicate taste, and you can really taste the flavors. So if you get a bag of coffee from a local roaster or from a store and it says flavors like fruit flavors, and you were like, I want to taste those, a pour over method is an excellent way to get to taste the really unique flavors that coffee has in them.
It's really delicious. It's very easy to drink. It's very light. For just drinking it straight black is, you don't need to add anything into it.
In fact, when people say that they don't like coffee because it's bitter and they immediately pour milk or sugar, that would be a real travesty with this type of coffee.
This is not bitter at all.
This would not take milk very well. In fact, the fruity notes in the milk, I mean, I guess it would taste kind of like strawberry milk, but really not great strawberry milk. So
it's kind of citrusy almost.
So the next time you're at a coffee shop and you see them pouring over, probably not on something like this, probably something quite a bit smaller, I recommend, it's called a pour over coffee. Don't feel intimidated. Don't just get up there like I used to do and you'll want to get a pour over coffee and then end up going drip coffee. Say, hey, I'd like the pour over coffee. I don't care if it's the busiest time of the year, and I'm sorry for if there's any baristas in here thinking, you know, I hate when people order a pour over during the busiest rush, but try a pour over. Don't put any cream, any sugar, anything at all, and just really experience coffee for the rich, light flavors that it has. Especially if you've avoided coffee because of you think it's bitter and you don't like drinking something with a bunch of cream and sugar. Do not order pour overs from a chain.
So why does a pour over, why is it so much easier to drink straight black than, say, a drip coffee?
So there's a lot of things that go into it. Normally you will select lighter varieties. When you're trying to have something that has milk or sugar and that's what you're selling to or selling for, you're going to get a medium roast coffee and you're going to brew it so it takes a cream and sugar. If you're trying to drink that black without cream and sugar, it's going to taste bitter because cream and sugar is going to pair with the flavors that bitter coffee provides. And in fact, Starbucks tends to roast their coffee very, very dark. They also roast it very quickly, but it actually makes coffee with cream and sugar taste better. So the cream and sugar coffees at Starbucks taste so good because they are specifically roasting their coffee for that reason.
So it's all about how it's roasted.
The roast is very important. So if light roast tends to be hard to get because a lot of people don't want it because they've been trained that cream and sugar is the way to take your coffee. You go to certain spots in Europe, and I say certain, especially Scandinavia. Scandinavia are big into filtered pour over coffees. They really were the ones who pioneered the filter pour over. But the United States coasts have really revolutionized pour over coffee. And here in Kansas City, there's a lot of people doing good pour over coffee, and to match that, you're seeing people start to roast. Whether it be home roast like I am, or small batch roast, just to be able to get people the coffee so that they can experience this new type of coffee experience. Notice that I said in Scandinavia, Italy as a culture, they don't really drink filtered coffee at all. So even though this is, I think is the Cadillac of drinking coffee in my own, because it matches my flavor notes, they won't drink filter at all, meaning they're espresso drinks. So you can think of all the different espresso drinks, and I think I've never really gotten to espresso drinks just because I can't do them at home. I mean, you can, but the setup is a lot more expensive, and it's better just to go to a coffee shop if that's the case, if that's what you desire. But for the most part, you can make excellent coffee like this, and it's hard to beat in my point.
Mm-hmm.
The next couple of shows, we will get some of these technical difficulties worked out. I have a couple of ideas of what's causing the problems, so thanks for hanging around there with us as we get this done. I just wanted to show off that we've we put this counter down in here, we put this tile up, so we've really cleaned this little area up. And in fact, if you've ever been in my basement, it would be hard for you to believe that you were in our basement right now, other than the sewer pipe here. But I'm also going to start showing you how I do coffee like this at work, because I don't do this whole song and dance, but there are ways that I make that, if not good, better coffee at work every single day within about 2 to 3 minutes. So one time I'll show you the full method, and then I'll show you what I call the quick method. So, looks awesome. All right. Also, if you're joining us and you have not followed us on Twitch, please, if you are willing, throw us a follow. That helps us out. It just kind of gives us an idea of who's watching. It also gives you an alert anytime we're doing one of these shows. We're going to start mixing it up now that we got the kitchen. We're going to start doing roasts. We're going to start doing brews. And we're going to start taking the show on the road from time to time, where we're going to start going to some of these coffee shops and actually experiencing them, tasting their pour-overs, and trying to educate myself more on the espresso side to culture myself a little bit more. If all the Italians are just drinking that, it's got to be pretty good.
So if there's anything that you want to see, any methods for brewing or any different types of roast, let us know. We're open to trying and getting ideas of what people want to see, how to make the show better. So
yeah, and we'll stick around and answer some questions. We're drinking our coffee anyway, so if you want to lighten the questions up a little bit, feel free.
And for anyone wondering if we will still be able to sleep tonight after drinking coffee at what time, 9 o'clock or so?
9:30.
The answer is yes, we will be fine. We have 2 young children, so we could sleep at any moment.
That's when people ask me, like, how do you sleep when you drink coffee? I just laugh. I don't remember I've never remembered 5 or more minutes on the pillow in the last 3.5 years.
Yeah.
So
we'll be fine. Don't worry.
Not immune, but it doesn't work as magic as well as it used to. So feel free to drop some conversations. We'll hopefully, maybe you guys are enjoying your own drink, whether if it's not coffee, if it's a little bit more adult. That is your prerogative. This is about as much as I can swing anymore. But
I'm also going to open back up our Instagram Live for a minute and just show the brew that you did from the roast.
It's not a good look, as you notice. I pile through pretty quick.
It's okay.
That's why future shows I'll show you what's called the Brian Brogan Quick Method, where I roast. I don't do a lot of the measuring. I've done a certain type of brewing so much that it's just automatic. So if you're wondering, like, hey, I want to make coffee like that, but I can't be fumbling around with all this stuff. I need my coffee when I want it. I will show you that with a little bit of practice, not much, you can actually make really high quality gourmet coffee pretty quickly with a couple of cheat codes that I'll show all of you guys. So drop some questions in the chat so we're able to interact a little bit. If you got questions for Julie, we'll put her on the spot. And if you guys don't start grilling her with questions, I will. So, all right, Julie, get back in here.
Okay. I have a question. So, Jesse and Jill and Mom, since you guys are doing your dry January, what are you drinking tonight, if it's not coffee?
Okay. And we got a question from Jill McDonald 311. Do you take cream or sugar in the darker roast as pairs better with, or always drink it black? If I go to Starbucks and, if I'm in the airport and I'm traveling and I want coffee and I go to Starbucks, I will take it with cream. I'll take it with, I try to get heavy cream. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they'll have it and I'll ask for it. I try not to put sugar in it, but I will get heavy cream, non-whipped, and I will pour that into my coffee if I'm going to drink Starbucks coffee. Yeah,
same. I'll drink cream. I don't like sugar in my coffee, even Starbucks coffee.
It does mild it out. And in fact, even like if I'm in a diner and they're doing the bottomless and they have the bad like cream and sugar can really make up for a lot of bad stuff done. It's not that cream and sugar coffee, it tastes good. Like I'm not denying it, and it is a little worse for the old belt line, but what I really enjoy about black coffee is that it pushes people to make the product better. This is something that people have been enjoying for hundreds of years now, and I think our culture in the United States is starting to catch up. So I just want to be a part of it getting better and better and better as we go. Do you have a sink in your kitchen downstairs? That will go right here. I just haven't cut the hole for it yet. I am going to put a sink in. It will be a lot better just for dishes and upkeep, and we can kind of start moving in here. But right now I just have a countertop. We're going to start utilizing more wall space and counter space, and then we'll drop a sink in here. Let's see, I can't pronounce that word. Blood orange sparkling water in a wine glass. Well, that's one way to do it.
Oh. Yeah, I don't know what that is.
So Julie, just to we've lost some people, so we're gonna get off here pretty soon.
Okay.
I mean, an hour is probably pushing a lot of people what they can do. So you started drinking coffee the same time I did. Yeah. And you are just now coming around to black coffee. So what finally made the switch for you? Why are you willing to at least try black coffee? What adjustments have I been able to show you, or have you been able to discover for yourself that is now slowly starting to pull you over to black coffee? So if any of those are on the show that want to know, you kind of help them out with that.
So I didn't drink my coffee black, honestly, until you started roasting at home, probably this past spring. Even when you were getting really good coffee beans, grinding in at home, doing all of these methods, I still would put cream into it, just because, like you said, it was a little bit bitter. It could have been partially just habit, but I didn't really even start drinking it black until you started roasting, and you would talk about how good it was without needing to put anything in it. So I thought I would try it. Like you said, it's it's a little more healthy for you. Black coffee has a lot of good properties, antioxidants. So I decided I might as well just try it. And once I tried it with the coffee that you had roasted, I realized that I didn't need the cream and sugar in it. And, now no going back.
The roast, I mean, if you're not getting fresh roast coffee, change that first. And I'm not just saying that because that's the side of coffee that I love the most, is probably the roasting side. I guess I love the roasting side more so than even the brewing or anything, because of the just how quick you can get yourself into excellent cups of coffee just overnight. Okay. Did the Costa Rica experience have a big impact on you, Julie?
The Costa Rica experience was so much fun. I think for me it was very educational because I didn't really know anything about where coffee was grown, even down to just what it looked like, coming from these big pods that you have to break open, and it's a little tiny bean, and the amount of work that it takes just to get the coffee bean. So it gave me a bigger appreciation for coffee and an understanding as to why it's so important for so many cultures. So yes, the Costa Rica experience I think was really it was great for both of us. It was a big moment in our lives. That was the first really big trip that first kind of overseas trip that we took together. So we have some really good memories from that. And also seeing just kind of their own home farm and the way their lifestyle that they were able to lead, a really sustainable lifestyle, and still make this great coffee. It was something pretty special.
Yeah, I mean, black coffee, it's still black coffee. So even this, you take a look at used to. I think the more you acculturate it, I think the culture is really, for me, like the ritual, like the more I do with it, the more I learn about it, and the more I see like just the impact it has and like really how it connects us all. I will step in on her. I don't think Costa Rica really flipped the switch for her. She was still drinking tea by the time we left the trip. I think it was resonating in her mind. We went to Germany a couple months after that, and she started getting what was called coffee and cake. They eat that every day at 3 o'clock.
Yes,
and
that
once
is
she
true.
realized coffee and cake was on the table, I think coffee, once we came home, because there for like 2 months, we'd drink coffee and we'd be wondering where the cake was.
Yes.
So I think that's when I noticed you really started drinking. So really,
we were in Germany for 2 weeks, and we had coffee and cake every single day at about 3 p.m. And you're right, that was a big switch.
Yeah, I think that's so, and it's really the more you kind of build rituals, and I think that's from when I talk about people, it's always the ritual. Even if you don't have a ritual with coffee, you're just slamming a K cup in, and you're just doing it because you want caffeine. I would challenge you tomorrow, if you got time, go to a coffee shop, order, order a cappuccino, order a macchiato, like order something with milk drink, no big deal. Just sit down and just start building a better culture with it, because it is a good drink for you. It is, it is a big part. It does promote qualities like slowing down because it's a hot drink. If that's really start building a culture around it. That's what I've found, and that's even people at work, they think I'm nuts because I have a hand grinder and I have my home roasted beans, yet I will do that and I'll sit for 3 minutes. And I mean, I'll be honest, school's been really crazy, and all jobs have been during this time, but that 3 minutes can really just pull me out of some really dark places, and I really owe it all to this. I know I'm getting a little bit philosophical on the coffee here, but I just slammed 2 cups, so I feel pretty good. All right. So I appreciate all of you guys coming in, kind of working through some of our technical difficulties here in the kitchen show. I think we got some cool things. Just being in this space, I've already got a couple of really cool things I want to do. So those of you that have been with us, that have been rolling with us from the beginning, hopefully I can start doing a couple of different things just to spice it up a little bit. If you're new, thank you. Especially give us a follow. If you already have, great.
Look for some improvements next time. Brian's working on this space every day, so next time we broadcast from here, it's probably going to look a lot different.
So if you have any questions, drop them. You can drop them in the chat a little bit later. But other than that, thanks again for all of you guys' support, and be well, and I'll see you next time. Well,